Welcome to this episode of the Outfront Podcast with host Vince Noble, the podcast that gives emerging leaders and career transitioning individuals the information and inspiration to thrive and become their best. For sponsorship and advertisement opportunities, please contact info@nobleresolutions.com. And now, your host, Vince Noble.
I want to acknowledge each and every one of you who is stepping into your authentic power today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outfront Podcast, the show that gives emerging leaders and career transitioning individuals the information and inspiration to thrive and become their best. I am your host, Vince Noble. Hey, everyone, I am super excited on today. We have the distinct pleasure of having with us my good friend, Command Sergeant Major, retired Garrick Griffin, Fort Knox, U.S. Army Garrison. Anytime I engage in the topic of mentorship, although I happen to believe it is perhaps the most misunderstood and undervalued concept, I see it as something that I am personally duty-bound to do. Like anything else, like any other relationship, it's developed over time when both parties show up ready to give from a place of mutual trust and respect. I always like to say that if you are delivering any kind of massive value, if you are contributing in any meaningful way to your craft, then you have a responsibility to replicate the blueprint in the form of a mentorship program. Leaders, as I see it, must actively and intimately be engaged in helping, aid, and assisting not only with those that have been identified as the best and brightest, but helping everyone find the right mentoring relationship that works for them based on their own goals, objectives, beliefs, and values. I am most often asked, what exactly is formal mentorship? What makes it effective? How does it occur in various settings? And the truth is, oftentimes, those most in need of mentoring don't understand enough about it. They don't understand how to seek it out, and sometimes it's a matter of proximity or getting beyond environmental restraints and the lack of exposure in a sense. Chances are, if you wasn't brought up in a culture of positive mentoring, you'll be less to engage in mentoring positively. You will naturally only put out what have been intentionally placed in you. So listen, as always, before we get started with these extraordinary conversations, I want to say, as much as I love having intellectual stimulating they are meant to do far more than pique our intellect. They are meant to drive us into meaningful action. So as you listen, our guests are not solely on this show to promote themselves, their services, or products, however, in large part, to provide significant insights and actionable steps to engage you, thereby helping to shift you from one level to the next. So I encourage you to listen and think about how you may make a difference. No matter who you are, it is my greatest hope that you find tremendous value in today's episode, because I truly believe how you navigate through the world and your interactions with systems and institutions are valid forms of knowledge. Good mentors truly make the difference. But the answer is always inside of you. What direction do you go in? Mentors help you to sort of rediscover what you already know. In many cases, the lack of an action plan and accountability is what you need. And I know sometimes accountability can feel like a personal attack. So I sincerely believe no matter who you are, we all often need help crossing the goal line, if you will, and hearing it for ourselves, even when we don't first recognize it. Mentoring is that time-honored practice in which many of us can point to a influential person or maybe several people who have helped shape who many of us are today. These mentors have worked behind the scenes with us, generously sharing their time, expertise, and insights to nurture our potential and to keep us on track and help us grow, oftentimes personally and professionally. To me personally, mentors are wisdom keepers. I say quite frequently how so grateful I am for all of my mentors because they help me spot out. They help me spot opportunities I could not see for myself. And so although we tend to think of mentors as a relationship in which an older, more experienced person passes his or her wisdom to some younger person, it can take many forms, including peer-to-peer mentoring and reverse mentoring, in which a younger person acts as a guide to the older. Garrick Griffin has spent more than 3 decades of his life training, coaching, and mentoring hundreds, if not thousands, of very special individuals inside and outside the circle of the military influence. He has served on the tactical and operational levels in the United States Army, and he is certainly one that I truly believe possesses the heart of an authentic ecosystem leader, mentor, and coach. And I am certainly proud to know such a leader and welcome him to the show today. In this episode, we'll be discussing the topic of finding my mentor. What are the approaches to finding a good mentor? What questions to ask a potential mentor? How do I know if it's the right fit for me? The benefits of mentoring for, from a personal or professional perspective, and staying on target, and so much more. We have a lot to unpack in this episode, so let's go. Garrett, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Vincent, how you doing, man?
Garrick, man, I feel like, my house is your house. So, it feels more like today you're a co-host rather than a guest. And so, again, welcome to the show on today.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. I mean, when you reached out to me and asked me to be a part of what you're doing, I couldn't say no. Anytime you have somebody that's, giving back, I always want to be a part of it as well, because I think that's what we was put on this earth to do, to give back and to inspire.
Absolutely. I believe today's conversation will be like rocket fuel, which will propel many people into 2021 and beyond. And so that's right. So, people, I believe people, when it gets down to it, Garrett, that I believe people just have to take action. People have to take massive intentional action every day until they manifest what it is they desire. And so I believe even with 32 days remaining in 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, this year will still be the year that many people will begin to manifest some of the things that they have been trying to manifest for a while now. So again, hey, thank you for joining us on today. So Garrett, as a good entry, I always like to start by saying, for those who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your early life influences. What was it like growing up, and the work you so passionately still do today?
Okay. Hey, thanks, Vince. Look, like I said again, thank you for having me here. So just a little bit about me. I'm a Birmingham. I'm a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I did 30 years in the military, culminating as the Garrison Command Sergeant Major for Fort Knox, which, if I'm equating it to the civilian world, it's like being a city manager. So I was basically responsible for assisting my boss in running a small city. Married, four grown adults. I can't call them kids anymore. Uh, I can't. I mean, as a matter of fact, I get in trouble when I do that. So I have to make sure I acknowledge that they're adults. And my biggest influence was my mom and my grandfather. My mom, she raised two boys by herself, and I would tell you, for a black woman growing up in Birmingham, Alabama, it wasn't easy, but she made it look easy. And my grandfather, that's my superhero, because my grandfather was the constant male role model in my life. Uh, Never got an opportunity to meet my grandmother. My grandmother died at an early age. She had a brain aneurysm. And so, but I had my grandfather, and I still have him today. As a matter of fact, he is one of my largest mentors. I talk to him about three times a week. But I watched this man raise three girls by himself, put all three of them through college. Uh, and if it wasn't for my grandfather, like me being involved in sports and stuff like that, it wouldn't have happened, because my mom she didn't want me and my brother playing sports and being engaged in the things that I think every child need to be involved in, those type of things that teach them how to be good citizens. So everybody else got Michael Jordan and some of these other athletes and stuff. My role models, and I even wrote papers about it in college, was Paul Griffin. And any opportunity I get a chance to give a shout out to my grandfather, I do.
That's wonderful. So, were you the first in your family to join the military?
So believe it or not, my grandfather, he did 2 years. It's funny. So he was in the Air Force. He came in during the Korean War. He was working on the railroad, and they laid him off. And right when he found out he was laid off, my grandmother told him that he was pregnant with my mom. And he went immediately down to see a recruiter and joined the military. And so, I mean, me and him, that's another one of those conversations. And he's another reason why, again, I did 30 years in the military, because he would always be on me about coming back home. And he'd be like, man, you stay in there until, the Army says it's time for you to go home. But it ain't nothing back here. You keep on doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you. And so, other than that, I brought a cousin into the military. He did a little stint in the military, but for the most part, I've been the constant as far as in my immediate family.
Mm-hmm. So your grandfather, if you would say, he sort of were some of the conditions that sort of led you into the military and down the path of that 30-year career, would you say?
I'm going to be honest, Vince. I had no intentions whatsoever, because I had my uncle married into the family that was in Vietnam, and boy, when he heard me even mention military, it was like, you're not going to the military. But to be honest, because of where I come from, I grew up in the projects. My mom, she worked hard, but she couldn't afford to send us to school. And my best friend, he had both parents at home, and he was in the ROTC program. And at that time, they had this, what they call like a little battle buddy or a cohort thing, that y'all both come in, you and a friend come into the military. And I just knew that if I joined the military, get my little college money, that'll take a little stress off my mom. And so, long story short, I ended up joining the military, and my friend, the one that was supposed to come with me, he backed out at the last minute. But I tell you, I have no regrets. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's wonderful. So, I always have to ask, and especially those that have served or currently are serving in leadership positions on any level, because we have the tendency to forget about ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I often ask, how are you doing during this, what I call mental marathon? And that's what it is. How are you doing during this mental marathon, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically? What do you find most challenging today? And more specifically, how are you dealing with it?
So Vince, I would say that, first of all, hey, I appreciate you asking me that question. I'm doing fine. This pandemic, And you talked about it earlier when you did your opening. For me, the pandemic has, I just transitioned out of the military in August, and the pandemic has actually given me an opportunity to become a little bit more spiritually in tune with myself. I get more time to, since we social distancing and not being around a lot of people, I get a lot more time to spend with God. I built a gym in my garage, so I get a chance to work out. This retirement life is something beautiful because I get to take midday naps to refresh my mind or go on a walk. And then I also started my own. I go live every morning to just try to motivate and inspire people. And what it's done for me doing this, going live and talking to people, as well as starting a podcast, it has helped me through this process because it still keep me connected to people. I still reach out to family members, either through calling or video chatting, as well as friends. So I haven't allowed the fact that we've been isolated to stop me, as well as us being in the military. Hey, we going into other foreign countries away from family. This is something that the military actually prepared us for, in my eyes.
Absolutely, I can agree with you. So Garrett, a great deal of my personal motivations, and the big why I do what I do, I often have to think back on those people who have influenced my life and helped, sort of shape conditions around me for better or for worse. And so I believe in many ways, the best way to learn how to be a good mentor to others or to seek out a mentor while even yourself being mentored or mentoring is to first kind of watch and observe sort of what is happening within the ecosystem, as I would call it. And so the ecosystem, if you will, and that's often paying strict attention at times beyond your immediate organization at times. So in other words, the ecosystem is not only about, this biological or biological functions of a particular place, it can apply to any overlapping system, if you will. So in other words, it's paying attention to, sort of what's shifting in your suppliers and customers of your particular business. It's paying attention to your distributors. It's paying attention to, who's in the banking system and education and finance and what's shifting around you. What is shifting in your particular craft, in your particular field of study, and sort of looking and saying, who's at the front of that? So what's happening inside and outside of my organization, and sort of identifying, potential mentors and attributes and values and beliefs and outcomes that sort of trigger your intellect in a new way, as well as people that have touched you geographically that kind of tried to mentor you in a way but didn't succeed. So I would say you'll know them by the fruit that they bear. So, sort of, no disrespect intended. But, do you inherently look for the shredded and ripped up guy in the gym to ask questions about, hey, what's your routine? Or do you look for the slightly overweight guy in the corner doing what is clearly improper curls and say, hey, what is your routine? So again, no disrespect intended, but I think it's a process has to make you feel somewhat uncomfortable at times too when looking for a mentor, right?
Yeah.
So it's the mindset shift that is saying, I need some life-changing help. I need some life-altering guidance, and quite possibly literally a matter of life or death. And so am I willing to do anything to get to it? To take out the trash, to answer the phone, to wash the cars, whatever you need to do to get next to that person that you feel has a great chance of mentoring in a way or in an area that you seek. So what is it going to take to get you on the inside track next to that person? All the greats, they seek out lifelong mentors. Why wouldn't you? And I tell individuals that all the time. Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Venus and Serena Williams, they all have multiple mentors because they deeply believe in their authentic mentoring relationship. But I believe there's a requirement of humility, and that humility says, I need guidance. And so good mentors show up in the form of hope, as I would often say. Some will make you nervous, and some will help you find your purpose quickly. But I believe that, Garrett, a lot of people are in a state of rebellion, so they don't often seek help when they need it, because they tend to be in this rebellion against sometimes authority figures. So the answer don't always appear in the form that they think it would appear. It don't always appear from just anyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the answer you've been looking for, in other words, it isn't some random person or process or act. You don't pick up random people to mentor you. You don't meet over a plate of hot wings and ask somebody, hey, mentor me, right?
No.
And you certainly don't send out 100 emails asking to be mentored. So, we're really getting at the crux to the question that a lot of times people ask, how do I really find that great mentor? And I always tell individuals again and again, your approach has to change and your approach has to be different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most mentors love to mentor, but they don't want their time to be wasted either, right?
Exactly.
And so I know I framed a lot with that question, but what would you say to that?
So first of all, I mean, to break it down in a nutshell, when you talk about the ecosystem, we hear it all the time in the military, having situational awareness, being aware of what's going on in your surroundings. What's the next big thing? I'm a firm believer in faith. I believe in a higher being. I believe in God. And I hope I don't violate anything on your show, but I do. And I believe that normally God puts in you what it is that he has put you here on this earth to do. And the thing is that you have to start you have to believe in yourself. And you already said something that's very important. Because once you start believing in yourself, because if God already put in you, everything else is going to come. The right person, your ability to see who it is that you need to reach out to become your mentor. Because, in certain organizations, and I know we're probably going to talk about it later, you got informal and formal mentorship, and you have mentorship development programs within organizations. But everybody ain't meant to be your mentor. Everybody is not designed. Like you say, you don't call a barber to do open heart surgery. You just don't. I mean, and so if you want to be a heart surgeon, then you need to be looking out and having the foresight to see who's out there, who's the best at what they do. A lot of times why people don't have mentors is because they don't think that the person that they would like to mentor them would be willing to do it. So many times, if you think about back to when people are not in certain relationships because they don't think that they good enough or think that this person don't find them attractive, the problem is that they never ask that person. Most mentors, Eric Thomas is one guy I listened to a lot, and he never thought that he could sit down and have a conversation with Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world. But guess what? Warren Buffett, he always, like you said, he want those type of conversations. He want to give back. The thing is like another thing, he don't want his time wasted. And so, I think when you start talking about the ecosystem and paying attention, or the situational awareness is very important. I think also a person has to be ready. Everybody ain't ready to be mentored either. Some people still in a state, like you was just saying a second ago, as far as being rebellious and wanting to do it their own way. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom before we learn. Sometimes we got to burn our hand a couple of times before we realize that we can't do it by ourselves. We have to put pride aside, and then we have to reach out to somebody that's probably been down the road that I'm trying to go down, and that they can give me some type of insight or help me get to where I'm trying to go. And that's where you start. That's where you start your pursuit of your mentor.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that if you're paying attention and you're moving in the direction that you're called to, it's this saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Amen. Amen.
Right? Yeah. So if you're moving in a direction, and sometime a mentor is to to affirm and sometimes confirm what you already know when you move it in that direction. Exactly. And the only reason why you sought out that person at times is because this person was delivering value in a way that you figure could help advance you and accelerate you, and that will enable you and that individual to develop a relationship because you figure this person is delivering the kind of value that would honestly help you. And the second thing I believe is that, we are conditioned to hear all the negative chatter that's going on around us. So when someone says you can't get access to a particular person, we believe that. Yep. And so many years ago, when I was studying for my Series 6 and Series 7 license, long before I even left the military, because I knew I wanted to enter into the financial markets. And I peeped out some very strong individuals in the financial market that other individuals were telling me you'll never be able to get access to these individuals because they're too busy. And so one thing that I often tell people is never allow other people to tell you who you can't get access to, because in this global digital world is a lot smaller than many of us think so, right? And so I tell people, never allow people to tell you who you can't get access to. And so I was very intentional about who I was going to reach out to because I believe they could help me cross the goal line, right? But I was willing to do the work. I think that's very important from a mentee perspective, Garrett. I was willing to do the work. What would you say to that?
No, that's spot on. I mean, because sometimes people look at the mentor as the person to, as you say, carry them across the finish line, but as well as carry the award and everything too. Again, I'm going spiritually. Faith without works is dead. So
it's dead.
So you still got to put in work. Just because you got a mentor does not mean that, okay, now your problem is solved. It's still some work that's going to be required. The mentor is there to help you navigate through the process. But the mentor is not there to do the work. The work is on the mentee. I mean, not to say that the mentor doesn't have work, but the mentee is required to put in that work. And so I truly agree. I truly agree that it requires you doing what was put inside you, going after it, putting your best. You might not be 100%. Well, you got to give your 100%. You got to give as much effort as you can. And then in those areas where you kind of snagged a little bit, that's where the mentor comes in. As well as you got to be receptive. As a mentee, you have to be receptive. And as a mentor, you also have to be receptive. And you have to also know that everything that you give in your mentee, they might not hear it. And you can't get upset about it. Because at the end of the day, what I've also found when mentor and mentee relationships fail is because the mentor is trying to make the mentee be exactly like them. Which means they didn't hear what the mentee came to them for in the first place. And so a good mentor, and I know you got questions on down the line, a good mentor, first thing a good mentor has to do is, one, be a good listener and be able to hear what it is that the mentee is trying to get at. Because if you are a good listener and trying to hear what the mentee is getting at, you might find out that, hey, I might not be the right person for this particular person. But you know what? I know somebody I can gear them toward or ship them to. So, it's very important that you got to put the work in. It don't come easy. If it was easy,
you have to do work.
If it was easy, everybody do it.
Right, that's right. So the conversation, the mentee, in my humble opinion, should always say, here's what I did.
Yep.
And then the mentee asks a question and go do the work. Mm-hmm. He asks a question and go do the work. He asks a question and go do the work.
Say it for the people in the back that didn't hear it one more time.
That's right. So what happens now is soon we have a mentoring relationship where I was adding value as well by doing the work, right? And a lot of people they don't mentor again because most people won't do the work. They won't do the work.
I think, but good mentors, and with anything, it's almost like lending somebody $20, and because they didn't pay you back, you don't lend nobody else. I personally feel, you just because one person don't operate or provide the feedback and do what you think they should do as a mentee, it's still some that's gonna put in that work that you're looking for. And I think everybody should be afforded that opportunity until they prove you wrong, until they show you that, hey, you know what, this is not the guy, girl, and maybe we need to move on from each other. But I try my best not to just shut down unless it's just somebody I just don't know. And then we gotta get a conversation going before I say, hey, yeah, you know what, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to be a mentor and help. But I try not to write off nobody. I try to give them that opportunity.
To that point, if you're given the blueprint, and then our conversation 6 months later is still on your current situation, but you're given the blueprint. And so I believe, again, it has a great deal to do with why so many individuals that's in the position to be good mentors, at times they're very selective and they give up on the process because, again, most they won't do the work. So I don't want you walking around with a notepad full of notes. I want you to take notes and take action. Take notes and take action, right? That's
action
what all good mentors want to see, that you're really taking action, because chances are it's probably taken me thousands upon thousands of dollars that I invested to get this knowledge, and years upon refining it and perfecting it. And now for you to take it to the next level, not that you need to do it to the letter, but are you willing to do the work in the time in which you're in? And so that conversation kind of has to shift. And that's how you strengthen the mentee-mentor relationship, because you're actually doing the work. So why do you think, such a generational gap exists with acknowledging the real value of a good mentoring relationship?
The biggest part is, a lot of mentors, especially in this day and age, and back in the day, and I just, I continue to relate to the military because, as you know, I did 30 years in the military, but as well as just some of the older, or what people think that, you're going to do it my way, and that's the only way to do it. And if you follow my blueprint, you're going to be absolutely right. Whereas, this new or younger generation, they have access to you, but they have access to so much more stuff than we did back in the day. And so as they receiving insight from you, they also receiving insight from other areas. At this point, because I know we're going to talk about reverse mentoring, but the more senior person at this point sometimes is not willing to change in this environment. And I think as we evolve as mentors, as leaders, or whatever word you want, you have to be receptive to change, and you have to be able to utilize some of the resources that's out there to help you. And if you're talking about helping somebody, there's so many resources out there, but you got to be willing. So I give you an example, like with social media. Let's use social media, or let's use the cell phone, for example. It's some mentors out there that just don't believe that, like what me and you doing right now, that we should, be talking or whatever. I'm going to give you what it is that you need to get, and then you go out there and execute. See, that's a gap, because with this generation right now, they tied to their cell phones, they tied to social media, and unfortunately, if you want to be the mentor that you say you are, you're gonna have to embrace that as well to be able to get through to them. I just feel like as long as you capture them, as long as they getting at it, it's always more than one way to skin a cat, as they always say in Alabama. So it's always more than one way to skin a cat. You just got to be willing to change.
I totally agree with that. And again, I think it's in a way, it's always a constant scanning of what we talked about in terms of the ecosystem, if you will, right? And it's knowing individuals who are constantly evolving and changing from that perspective, wherever sector you're looking at. And so I don't think it's really binded to a particular age, but are you? And again, like I said, you will know them by the fruit that they bear. Who's at the front of really what's happening, right? And so I think a lot of people, oftentimes, they are surprised when I tell them that I have quite a few mentors that are 10 to 15 years younger than me. And especially in the tech space,
Yep.
right? And especially in the financial market space. And they are really educating me, if you will, schooling me on some things in terms of not only just application based, but knowledge based, because they grew up in a different time period. And so in many regards, the older person that typically would be looked as the mentor, there's some catch up in certain domains if you want to stay relevant, if you will.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I totally agree. I mean, Vince, I see my little 7-year-old cousin that can maneuver through the computer and maneuver through her tablet much better than I can. And and again, we was learning how to write cursive on big, paper with big pencils and stuff, and they don't even know how to write. Everything is done on the computer. And so you'll be fooling yourself if you think that you can't learn something from the younger generation. Matter of fact, and again, going back to the military, and me and you both being former ordnance soldiers, how many times did you go to another organization and the equipment that you've been working on for years is not in that organization? And when you get there, the only person that know how to operate that equipment, the subject matter expert on that equipment, is probably that young soldier that probably only got about a year or two in the Army. And you've been in for 20 plus years, and the only way you really gonna learn is humbling yourself and being able to ask those questions. I used to grab my soldiers all the time, especially when I got the new organizations, and I'm like, hey man, I ain't never done this before, and I'm not afraid to acknowledge it that I haven't. Could you show me? And here's the thing about that: when you do that, you establish trust. The pride and the morale in that organization, it just changes because, being that he's been in for long and he's been doing this for all this time, he thought enough of me as a younger person to ask me how to do something. And that's empowering. You don't know what you just did. And also what you just taught that younger person is that when they get to where you at, they got to be able to do the exact same thing. They got to be able to listen to
that's right.
That next generation if they want to continue to progress and continue to grow.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: Do you think there's a graduation date per se, or expiration date to a mentoring relationship?
Nah, I don't think so. I think that some relationships might come to an end because what was that movie that show Kung Fu back in the day? Grasshopper was able to get the pebble, and you move forward or whatever. But I think everybody that ever mentored me, we might not talk on a daily basis, but if I need to, I can reach out to them, as well as those that I have mentored. They know that they can reach back. I think that the mentor and the mentee is always in a constant growth status throughout their whole life, and even the mentor need mentors. Some must forget that too. Some must think that once we get to we achieve a certain title or a certain position, that we have evolved and we no longer need assistance. We no longer need to grow. And what we find out, those that do that, or those that have that thought process, they become what we call dinosaurs, and they become moved out because they are irrelevant. I think as you grow, you'll find out that, hey, the person that's been mentoring me, they got me to a certain point.
Well, to that point, not per se.
Yeah.
In a physical sense, what I mean, graduation date.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're being very specific in terms of, what the measurables and the outcomes of what that particular mentoring relationship would have been, and certainly depending on what it is, because again, think about it in the sense that we could have multiple mentors in a sense, depending on what area of our life, personally or professionally, or some area that we're being mentored in, and they may not all be enduring to a degree. Yeah. So to your point, I think you're also correct, but at the same time, we should be aware of that there will be situations where this mentoring relationship, although enduring to a degree, in other words, that when you recognize, you kind of outgrow, and then specifically, what was the aim? What is the objectives of what this relationship, this mentoring relationship, was to bring about?
Yeah.
Particularly because if you think about it, that successful mentoring relationships, they all go through stages, as you said, right? And some of those stages are they are repeated, if you will, and so after you get to a closure on a certain area, doesn't mean that you're stopped being mentored by this individual. It could mean less engagement to a degree, right?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
So I have to ask, I get asked a lot, Griff, is that from organizational leaders, Vince, mentorship and talent management is essential, and particularly, and this is an area that people get kind of uncomfortable because they sense that it's paying favoritism to a degree. But I get asked a lot, from organizational leaders, Vince, mentorship and talent management is essential, and particularly so for minorities. If we want the best to rise to senior levels outside the organization, inside organizations, if we want them to do well, minorities need to be mentored. How would you speak to that?
I think that is very important. I think that as much as some people might not agree, it's certain things that if somebody didn't grab me and have a formal program within the organization, I would have never even known to ask those particular questions. I would have probably never been identified as one of the guys or girls that should be selected for this particular job or selected for that particular job, because it was no formal documentation. It was nothing to show where I was at. So I think I'm a true believer in a mentor or a leadership development program where you teach people, because some people argue that leaders are born. Some people argue that they are taught. I think it's a little bit of both. I think some people have leadership traits from birth, but I still think by having a developmental program, you enhance those skills, as well as you able to identify talent through that process. And the organizations that I've seen that have those type of programs in place seem to be the most successful the most successful organizations, because they establish trust within the organization, because you have dedicated time for my growth. You have set aside a program to help me further my progress. It builds retention within the organization. I don't see too many people trying to get out of an organization where people help them grow within that organization. Normally, you have conversations with people that want to leave an organization because they feel like they have no upward mobility. Nobody talks to them. Nobody feels or make them feel like they're a part of the team. So establishing a good mentorship or development or talent management program, I think is essential to an organization at all levels.
Absolutely. I believe that as well. So, you spent a great deal of your time in learning institutions overall as well. How do you see the role of institutions in shaping effective mentorship programs?
I think institutional wise, you establish a baseline. Because here it is, and I learned it as being a former first sergeant at the NCO Academy, which I'm using acronyms, but the non-commissioned officer course, as well as being a former battalion command sergeant major in the AIT realm, is that you're establishing a baseline. And if for some of the people that would come to the schools, this is the first time they ever even heard the word mentorship program, let alone the word mentor. And so now they seeing my instructors teach, coach, and mentor them, sitting them down, counseling them, telling them where they're effective at, telling them what they need to work on. Well, guess what? By them receiving it there, they take it back to the organizations, and then they improve their particular organizations. I have always been a firm believer that institutions establish a baseline. You can't put it all on the institution, because the institution can't do everything. It still requires some, when you get back to the organizations or whatever, but the institutions help to establish a baseline.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So if you were speaking to a group of senior corporate leaders, what would be your advice to them, or more so, how would you help codify that into a civilian organizational structure, if you will?
It's important within an organization. Organizations need to have leader developmentship programs because it encourages professional and personal growth. It increases morale within an organization. People get to learn and meet other people within the organization that they never met before. It allows for reverse mentorship, and I think we talked about that earlier, where they can learn. The young can learn from the older, and the older or the more senior people can learn from the younger people within the organization. It reduces costs by having a formal program within your organization. You don't have to send people out to school. You can establish resources and stuff within your footprint that can help for people to grow. As well, retention. I'm telling you, I don't know how many people within the garrison that could have actually went off and got higher paying jobs and went other places, but because we had an established leader development / mentorship program, they didn't want to leave because they done worked in other places before and never received what we was giving them.
I think what you just highlighted something that is very significant to what you just brought out. Is the fact that it's a direct impact on retention and the bottom line of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's enough to pay attention to. So, absolutely. So if you could wave this magic wand, what steps would you take to eliminate the lack of mentorship, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace?
If I was king for a day, I would just have to stress the importance. I would have to, outline what I just told people, the importance of the organization. We just talked about the retention piece and the bottom line. If you can get more people to understand how it helps to improve the organization more so than hurting the organization, I just think that you wouldn't have to worry about the inclusion or ensuring that you have a program, because everybody want to do it. It's once you get that buy-in and everybody is a part of it, people be looking for it. They be wanting to have those conversations. They'll be wanting to sit down and have mentors. I mean, people were looking for the next book that we had to read within the organization. It just made them better. I can't stress enough how important having a program or having some form of mentorship program within an organization is.
Absolutely. And I think to that point as well is that, the mentors and the leaders make it work, but as well as I always go back to the mentee as well, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's a relationship that I see is developed over time, and it is strengthened by both individuals in that relationship. Mm-hmm. So I'm just huge on the mentee don't show up and he just don't be a taker, right? So he's just looking to extract from this program. You in your organization, all you have is complaints about the lack of, or whether or not it's happening, or you dissatisfied, or you seeking out mentors in your organization. But you show up with a taker's mentality, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always tell mentees as well, always add value, right? And that's by asking your mentor for help as well. And I know that's counterintuitive in a way, by a mentee saying to their mentor, how can I help you? How can I add value to you to strengthen this relationship, right? Because, I get multitudes of requests from people asking for help every day. And most of the time, they want me to do them, they want some information. They want information for free. They want me to give them advice or to do them a favor. And although I truly enjoy helping people, I've had some great mentors again that have helped me to get over the hump in my career, and I'm glad to pay it forward, mm-hmm. right? However, with so many requests at that time, and just like many other individuals in a position to be mentors to others, it's because individuals don't understand, is really what I want to extract from this podcast as well. You don't really understand the true mentoring relationship. And most mentors, and I think you can speak to this as well, most mentors are after the relationship. What would you say to that?
No, I think if I'm getting ready to pour into myself, one of the things I really need to know is that it's going to be a relationship, and it's not just a one way, a whole bunch of giving and nothing in return. Because I expect, I mean, I respect the return on investment. I mean, who doesn't?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just like you invest in your money. Not to say that I'm investing my money, but if I'm investing my time and my experience in somebody, I'm respecting a return on investment. And so a lot of times, I don't think people think about that when they start looking for a mentor. And I have 4 things that I always think about when I tell a person, hey, when you're looking for a mentor, it's 4 things that I think that you should look for. And one, first of all, you need to realize whether or not you and your mentor are compatible. And when
Absolutely.
I say compatible, you know, it's gonna be some clues in that. You're gonna see that hey, this guy or girl might not work for me, and that's on the mentor, on the mentee. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to agree with everything they say or whatever, but you're gonna see that they might have some things that you just completely goes against everything that you believe in, and so you might need to move on. But on the flip side of it, it has to be some contrast too. It has to be it's got to be some differences. It's the reason why you want this person to mentor you is because you see something in them that you say that you don't have in yourself. You ain't looking for somebody that look just like you, that's doing the exact thing that you're doing right now. If that's the case, you can do that for yourself.
Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons for seeking out a mentor, to have somebody that's different, that can bring something to the table that you never thought about before. Expertise does not always mean title. It does not always mean that you senior or whatever, but this person has been down the road and I'm trying to go to. That's another thing that I look at when I see a mentor, that they can provide some insight to me. And then the other piece is trust, because trust is very important, because this is going to be some conversations that you as a mentor or a mentee going to have, that's going to, it's got to be a circle of trust there, because if not, all it's going to take is for you to hear something that y'all done talked about come from somebody else's mouth that was supposed to be personal, that was supposed to be just between y'all. And, somebody come back and say, well, such and such and told me. And when somebody had a conversation about something that was supposed to be personal between y'all, that they didn't told somebody else, because only one person could have had it. And so when that circle of trust is broken, it's real hard. So, and I learned that a long time ago. Compatibility, contrast, expertise, and trust is what I think you really need to look in. And when you start trying to identify who your mentor or mentee should be, because the mentor should also look for those same qualities in the mentee.
I agree.
Because as a mentor, you're going to be somewhat, I will hope that you're somewhat transparent with your mentee. When your mentee feel like they the only one going through what they going through, and you can let them know, hey, I've been there. And let me tell you how bad I was in it.
When I became aware of the dip theory, I was able to connect with people at a greater level, because we are conditioned, especially as leaders, we want to celebrate the high points of our lives. And more times than not, we're celebrating the high points of our life, and that's all we want to reveal. But we in this mentoring relationship, the value is you get a glimpse at the real me. You get a glimpse of me when I was sleeping in a 1-bedroom apartment on a raggedy sofa.
Exactly.
You get that. You get the idea a little bit better when I share with you on managing finances and how I learned some things the hard way when I didn't even have enough money in my bank account to buy a small Domino's pizza at one time. So those dips in our lives, and we all will hit those dips in our lives along the way. That's called the growth, right? Because there will be spiritual dips, financial dips, psychological dips, emotional dips, but we don't stay there. And when we come up out of those dips, we're able to celebrate even the more and share that.
Yeah, I agree. I know. I agree with it. I agree with you, because what it is, when you go through that stuff and you come through it, it helps you appreciate it more. The problem is
And you appreciate it more.
a lot of times people, when given certain things and they never had to go through something, they don't appreciate it. I think, man, you had this conversation the other day when I was talking about, paying for all my kids' cell phone. Well, like I
Mm-hmm.
told you in the beginning of this podcast, they all adults now, so I don't pay for cell phones. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing how, they phones stay intact now. And they appreciate it more because, they understand that when they break it now, they got to pay for it. And it ain't gonna come easy. So I think when you go through the test in life, the struggles in life, it make you stronger, it make you appreciate it, but it also make you, I call it the expert, and you can be a testament to that person that you mentoring. A lot of times people look at other people and they only, as they say, see the trailer, like a trailer in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
The trailer in the movie only give you the high points in the movie, but it don't give you the whole movie. Sometimes you say, man, that's a good movie, I'm gonna go watch it.
That's a good movie.
And when you go watch the whole movie, you be like, man, I cannot believe that's 2 hours of my life I can't get back. A lot of times that's how it is when we look at people. But a relationship between a mentor and a mentee is more than just a trailer. And that's where that trust come into play, like I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. And again, I don't illustrate this to be braggadocious by no means, but I had a young man. I pulled up at a red light one time, and a young man looked over. He looked over close enough on the bus stop, and he was riding the bus, and he looked over close enough and said, I want to be like you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I shouted back out through the window, but are you willing to go through what I went through to get to where I'm at?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right?
You don't know my story.
you don't know my story. And again, that individual, I later exchanged some information with him, and we were connected for many years. But one of the things I would say is that, especially when it comes to the military and transitioning leaders from the military, is because most will be entering into spaces that they are not used to, and there will be a requirement for a different set of mentors more than not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you have to be aware of the fact that, again, you don't approach the situation without adding value, as I stated before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very critical for transitioning military personnel on both sides, officers and non-commissioned officers and soldiers alike.
Yeah.
It's because more than not, individuals will be prepared to have a conversation with you that you're not used to having.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they're going to tell you that they're choosy about how and who they respond to. They won't have a hard time telling you that. Not in the corporate setting.
No.
You have to be prepared for that.
I think, honestly, in this last job I had really showed me just how entitled we have made a lot of our people in the military, and we don't prepare them for that transition because of so many programs that we have established in the military to try to help people grow. And then when they get outside of the military, they look for those programs and they just not there.
They're not there.
They might be the one that have to establish it in the organization that they go into, and in some cases that's a blessing because you have the wherewithal and the knowledge to be able to do it. As I was transitioning out of the military, I really went, I went to Soldier for Life and all the other stuff, but I also reached out to a lot of people that had already took that route and asked them what was the pitfalls as they was transitioning, what I need to focus on. Because if I didn't, I would set myself up for failure. By asking somebody that's still in the military what I need to do as I'm transitioning now, I ain't saying that they don't know, but they ain't been down that road yet. They still, what they think they know might not be the case. And so I made sure to guys like you that already transitioned and others, as I was walking out of the door, I reached out. And I'm still going through the process right now, and I continue to still talk to those people. And I think it's very important that you establish relationships with people, not just in the military, but outside the military, so that you can, be better prepared. because
Absolutely.
at one point, somebody else is going to be walking out of the military, and they're going to be looking to you. They look to you to be a mentor when they was in the military. Now they looking for you to be a mentor as they transitioning out. And if you know, and I just think you need to be prepared for that.
Absolutely. And again, I have to sort of be clear, and I'm willing to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I'm looking to have a relationship, and so I have to be choosy. And when I speak of I in this sense, I speak for many of, depending on how you want to navigate, particularly to when I say individuals leaving the military and going into a corporate setting, wherever they're going to, is that most individuals will be very choosy about how they and who they respond to, right? And so there's a particular type of person that I rule out right away.
Mm-hmm.
And strangely, it's the most common of all. And that's the person who contacted me out of the blue, asking me for some random help.
Yeah.
Right. These are random people that I've never, interacted with before, online or in person. Mm-hmm. And the person, right away, that person will reach out and, send you out 1,000 links to check out their website of some sort, some business they want to get going in.
I get them every day.
And you don't even know this person.
Yeah, get them every day.
So the people that I make time for anytime is and that person is the one who have shown me a vested interest in getting to know me. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important? Because, again, as you stated, I want to ensure that he understands if this is what you're looking for in terms of a mentor-mentor relationship. I want to ensure that, we meet each other's expectations up front, if this is a good fit for the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that doesn't come out right away. The relationship will erode for a period of time before I discover that, that this individual feels as though you're, even from a mentee perspective, you're adding no value to the relationship, right? And so, someone that seeks to be mentored, again, they don't ask to and send 1,000 links to check out, their initial communication, and you don't even know who this person is.
Especially since I started going live and basically, accepting friendship requests from everybody and anybody. And the minute I look at my messenger in my box and I'm seeing, hey, check out my new this and check out my new that. Yeah, that's always
exactly.
That's a turnoff, right? Because I really don't know you. I appreciate the fact that you listen to me or whatever, but now that I think about it, you probably weren't looking or listening to me in the first place. You was just trying to get me to help support your stuff. And so you're right. You got to be very selective in what you do.
You got to be very selective. It's after the relationship that you're seeking, and so. Do they show signs of being interested in a two-way relationship with you?
Mm-hmm.
And one not just about me taking, right?
Yeah.
So I say that I'm always smart about the relationships that I enter into, and by being smart, that's being specific. Mm-hmm. You don't pick up random people when you're smart, right? You're very specific. What are the goals of this relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that is measurable? What are we trying to get out of this? How will it be measured? How will we measure progress? Is it attainable? Are the goals achievable? Is it realistic? And is it timely? So what are we trying to get out of this, right?
I think it's something that as y'all sit down, all that stuff need to be established too.
Absolutely.
Up front. I mean, like you said, with the goals, what are the measurables? How do we know the goals that we done set forth for this relationship? How do we measure them? And all that stuff need to be established. Is it, hey, you did this within a particular period? You didn't sign up for this course. You didn't provide this feedback at this particular certain. And is it, like you said, is it attainable? Is it something that you really can get at? So, yeah, that's that one of them acronyms that we have. How we help each other out. And I think that's very important there, Vince.
There are checkpoints to success.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so But by utilizing those checkpoints to success, you won't have anyone dissatisfied or in the relationship 12, 18 months from now, and then determine that there was something involved in a mentor-mentee relationship that they didn't feel like they made good on in any kind of way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the time wasn't wasted. They just spent all this time and effort, and then also, like you said, that we making we hitting the mark. And if you said it earlier too, that if we're not hitting the mark, that we able to go back and make some adjustments.
We able to go back and say that where did this thing first start? They go off the train at.
Yeah,
where did we first start? We go wrong at.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So in other words, nothing makes a mentor feel unappreciated faster than especially not following up, right? That's the other thing to go along with that.
It is.
Because in the relationship, we establish some follow-up to some things that you're clearly doing. I may be working for you. You may say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'll get back with you, right?
No, I just want you to have the same energy that you had when you first reached out to me to be your mentor.
Absolutely.
I don't want the minute that I done gave you a few things that you was looking for, and then you just fall off. Because that is disappointing. That is very disappointing. Not to say that I need you to praise me and give me accolades or nothing like that, but I just need to know that you're doing okay. And with a mentor, sometimes it requires a mentor reaching out too, if they haven't received any feedback or anything from their mentee. Now,
exactly.
If I'd have reached out to you a couple of times and I keep on just getting voicemails and stuff like that, now, yeah, we got a problem.
We got a problem. I mean, it's just what you just said. We got a problem because I am amazed at how many people don't follow up, right? And so if I give you, and these are clear cases where if I provide some information, I give you something and you say, okay, thank you, Roger, I'll get back with you and let you know how things going, if it's working for me. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, I don't hear from you again. Mm. And then you tell me, well, I was going through a little bit of something and, I didn't get a chance to work it. See, that nothing more dissatisfying to a mentor than those relationships. And that's the reason why oftentimes mentors are very selective about who they give their time to.
I agree.
And are you showing any signs that you are really invested in this relationship? And so a lot of people transitioning from the military, there's some things I spent $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 to be a part of mastermind groups because I figured there was some valued information that was going to change the course of my life, and it did. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not telling you oftentimes have to be prepared to invest and pay into mastermind groups. It should be all free information, but the reality of it is that there's information out there that is sold in the form of mastermind groups or mentoring groups.
No, I agree. I don't see nothing wrong with it, to be honest. I mean, as much as stuff is out there that is free, I don't see nothing wrong with it personally. If you say you want to grow, I mean,
if you say you want to grow,
if you say you want to grow, you got to get around and some people got offended when I say that you can't be the smartest person in your circle. I mean, you can't, because then you're not challenged. And sometimes it requires you to go into some of those mastermind groups and stuff like that and be around some people that's that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Because I'm a firm believer, you continue to do the uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable. And once it becomes comfortable, now you got to go find something else that make you uncomfortable, because that's the only way you're going to get better. I think Les Brown said, it's not the fact that people reach or they set their goals too high and they miss. The problem is they set their goals too low and they hit and they just stay right there. And I think in order for you to improve, to get better, you got to get around some people that's thinking that next level stuff like you're talking about. And sometimes it requires an investment.
An investment. It's going to be an investment. There are certain platforms that you just don't get access. You calling me and you want to get my password, my username to get access to get access to the platform. I'm just telling you, it doesn't work. And so a lot of times, especially our military population of folks, you have to be prepared for that. What are you willing to do? Because I think there's some great Americans as they prepare to transition, and much about this platform is about providing information and inspiration to transitioning individuals, to inspire them to become their best. And so I think at the root of that, what undergirds all of that as you transition from one sphere to the next, you're going to have the right people mentoring you. You're going to have to get access to the right timely information. And I believe information changes situations.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
Timely information changes situations. And then if you be prepared with the right mindset to act on that which you know. Otherwise, it's just potential. But you're prepared to deliver value as well. Hey, for those leaders just starting out on their mentoring journey, what initial actions would you recommend that they focus on to get connected with or to have the greatest impact on their organization or their community?
One, I would tell them learn situational awareness. We talked about it earlier. Find out what it is that the organization needs. Find out what the community needs. Two, educate yourself. Education, knowledge you just talked about is always important. There's so many resources out there to help you improve your organization, but you got to be willing to go out there and get it. You got to be willing to go out there and get it. Remain humble and don't allow pride to be the thing that holds you back. Pride is a dangerous thing, and I've seen it affect so many, especially young emerging leaders, because they're afraid to let people know what they don't know. They think people are going to look at them different because they don't know certain things. And I would tell you, I've always respected the person that came to me and said, hey, I just don't know this, but I want to know, I want to learn, and I'm willing to learn. And so, and just be a lifelong learner, just know
Absolutely.
that you'll never learn, you'll never know everything. And I think as they start off and allow life and the experiences to teach them, they'll be okay. They'll be successful.
Absolutely.
That'll be the best advice I can give.
Absolutely. So, hey, Garrett, we're in that segment of the show that we call Hot Seat.
Okay.
And that's by asking our guests a few, what I call inquiring minds want to know questions.
Okay.
And the first question will be, what is the book or leader development books you're giving the most as gifts and why?
Okay. The very first book that I have given out the most, more than anything else, is this book called Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson.
That's a great book.
And the very first time I received the book, I was a drill sergeant leader at the United States Army Drill Sergeant School. And I was like, what in the world is this book? What are we talking about? Cheese. I don't want to talk about no cheese. I'm lactose intolerant. I don't want to talk about it. But that book has proven to be one of my best assets throughout my whole military career. I have read that book in every organization. I have conducted LPDs with military as well as civilian personnel with this book, because the book is about change. It's about accepting change. It's about embracing change. It's about what happens when you stay in the same, and what happens when you step out and try to do different things. So that book is one of my most powerful books. Another book, 1 Minute Manager, which I feel Spencer Johnson was a writer on that one, but also Ken Blanchard. Another book, especially if you're talking about being a mentor and being an effective leader, is this 1 Minute Management. And they got several different versions of the book, but the one that I gave out the most was the original, and that's the 1 Minute Manager. And it talks about sitting down and establishing goals, just like we talked about between the mentor and the mentee. It talks about how you acknowledge people when they do something good, as well as how you deal with stuff when people don't do something quite right. It teaches you how to address the problem and not attack a person's character or the person themselves, and how effective it is by approaching it in the fact of, hey, you're a good guy or girl, but this right here, what you did wrong, and this is what we need to get at it. And then on top of it, we don't spend 12 hours beating you up about it. Man, I mean, Vince, you know about the stand-up. I remember one time my cell phone went off in a meeting, and I ended up having to go see the sergeant major, and I stood at parade rest. And for my civilian-minded people out there that has nothing to do with me, it was standing like with your hands behind your back in a certain position for over 2.5 hours.
Oh,
I walked
wow.
out of there. I couldn't even hear what the person was saying to me because my shoulder was in so much pain that I completely forgot all the other stuff. So that book is powerful. And then I have two other guys that I really would tell people to look up. Simon Sinek. I mean, any book you get from Simon Sinek, I think you can't go wrong. But two of the books that I done gave out to some of my leaders. One is Leaders Eat Last, and which that book concept came from the military. Him sitting down and talking to some Marines, and start with the why. I think it's very important that people understand why they do what they do. Because when you as a leader teach people how to understand the why they do it, they are more willing to go out there and execute. A lot of times people do stuff just because everybody said that. Well, that's the way we always done it, and you always get that pushback from people because just because that's the way we always done it, that don't mean I want to do it that way. But when you explain people why they doing certain things and they understand, not only are they more willing to do it, but you just taught them that they need to make sure that they do that with they subordinates and their peers and people too, explaining the why. And then the last book, and I just don't think you can't go. I just know you can't go wrong. Anything with John C. Maxwell, and that's the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Absolutely.
I think every leader need to sit down. That book alone can create a leadership development program or a mentorship program within your organization.
Those are all excellent books that I possess as well in my library. You know, one of the things I often say is that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And you know, that may sound like a play on words for most, but it's true. Leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And so I've always been a bit uncomfortable, even to this very day, when someone referred to me as a leader. I've always had there's a bit of uncomfortableness that I feel when someone refers to me as a leader, because I believe, at least in my own mind, on whatever level that I'm on, am I measuring up to that, right? Because in most instances, I get phone calls all the time. Hey, I'm a leader now, and I go, oh, really? Because just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean you're a leader. Leadership is what you do. And so by being a leader, leaders are readers and readers are leaders. I've always made it my business, even outside of those circles, when it wasn't forced upon me, to constantly be an avid reader on both the art and science of leadership. And you gave some phenomenal books there. You gave some phenomenal books. So my next question would be, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success?
I don't know quite a few.
Absolutely. And you know, oftentimes leaders are not that transparent.
Yeah.
Right. But I believe the greatest value, even as a leader, is in your transparency. And so I would say that to say there's some favorite, I call my favorite failures. Because some of my favorite failures and how I overcame, they turned out to be my greatest successes. I have to always talk about them.
I mean, I done had so many of them, but I would tell you one, and again, it's military related because that's what and we both got a friend by the name of Sultan A. Muhammad, and I've been knowing him for a long time. I've been getting my head bust by him for a long time, but I would tell you, he one of my mentors. But I would never ever forget this, because this thing almost led to be an international situation, and truly was. So not to, talk strictly military or tell what we did, but, I was a first sergeant in a quartermaster company, and we was downrange in Iraq, and, I had a fuel point, and we would have these foreigners bring fuel and dump the fuel out at my fuel farms. Well, one of the TTPs that my guys had that I wasn't aware of is that when the foreigners didn't act right, they would take their passports. And that would it make them act right, and so that they wouldn't do certain things because they weren't supposed to be smoking around the fuel tanks and stuff like that. Well, long story short, let's just say that a passport came up missing, and it happened during a shift change, and nobody knew where the passport was. And now I got to go see Sultan A. Muhammad, and I'll never forget the words that came out of his mouth. He said we were systematically dysfunctional and we get ready to start an international incident. From that point on, I realized that no matter how much I trust my people and what I think, I still need to be checking our systems. I still need to understand what's going on within the organization, and what don't get checked don't get done. And so, from that sit down and having that conversation with him that day, I learned that, hey, you know what? I got to be just a little bit more involved than what I've been doing. I done got complacent, and I done allowed some things to happen that I shouldn't. And that's the other thing that I've learned with my failures, especially as a leader. You know, a lot of leaders like to capitalize when they soldiers succeed at something. But when they soldiers mess up or whatever, then they just want to put the blame on the soldiers, and they don't take credit for the failures either. So one of the things that I have learned is with my soldiers, they don't fail. I fail them as a leader. It's something that I did that I didn't put in place. And so that type of thing has stayed with me. And that was one of the ones that I can sit back now and laugh at it. It was painful at that time. Man, I was like, man, we might as well cancel Christmas right now because this is about to be ugly. But we got through it. He showed me that as much as a lot of people was intimidated by him, but he also showed me some humbleness in this process as well. And he showed me how to respond and react in this situation. I was mentored from that point, because I would tell you, you hear me talk about him all the time, but we had an adversarial relationship at first. A very adversarial. I used to think that he did not like me whatsoever. And it actually took me having a conversation with his first sergeant. And his first sergeant said, well, look around and see who he don't talk to, who he don't say stuff to. He was mentoring me, and I didn't even know it. I didn't even realize it. He was preparing me he was preparing me to fill the bench, and I didn't even know it. But when it was put in a different perspective and somebody made me understand it, then guess what? I appreciate everything that came from. Now, the one thing that I had a conversation with him about was, hey, sometimes when you selecting people and you mentoring them, it don't hurt to let them know that either. Because you can run somebody off. And from that point on, all our conversations have always been candid, and I appreciate all the things that he done to me, as well as I have been able to give back to him. Because it was not just a taker relationship with him. He ain't giving it to you if you ain't giving back. I can tell you that right now. That's the one thing I did learn from him. If I ain't learned nothing else, and I had to make sure that I was giving back, because he definitely poured a lot into me.
Absolutely, and that was a defining moment where you really discovered that
Leadership
is what you do, is not a position.
Yep.
And so particularly for our military community, there are some defining moments and some hard lessons learned in the University of Hard Knocks, unlike our civilian counterparts. And so, much of we learn by our level of engagement each and every day. But leadership, it's certainly it's not a position, but it's certainly what you do in your level of engagement each and every day. Mm-hmm. So my next question I would ask you is sort of what have been in the last 5 years, would you say, the number one mindset change, if you will, that has changed your life in the last 5 years?
Embracing social media and not looking at it as a bad thing, but a good thing, even though there's a lot of negativity and stuff that go on with it. But again, you get out of it what you put into it. And
Mm-hmm.
what I saw, especially within the last 5 years, as I was transitioning out of the military, that was what was going on. I mean, we started, and even as you see now, embracing social media and technology. But you look, we having all these Zoom meetings, and I used to be that guy that I hated emails. I'm just gonna be honest. I disliked emails. I didn't like texting. I didn't like any of that stuff because I grew up in an era where, we had a little green book that we got from the supply room, and everything that I needed to know was right there. But when I started embracing technology, utilizing some of these apps and things like that, I found that I had more time on my hands to plan and do stuff better. I was more efficient by embracing social media. I can get the word out a whole lot more than I could just, by talking to one or two people. And I think that some of my peers, some of my partners that's still out there, some of them are lacking because of that. They weren't willing to change, and they haven't been willing to embrace it. And they look at it as a bad thing, but I actually look at it as a good thing. And so if that was the one thing that changed me in the last 5 years, is embracing social media and technology, because we didn't have it when we first came in. We didn't.
Absolutely, absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. You have a lot of individuals that that will voice the fact that they certainly don't even like to check email.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like to communicate. They don't like to use any of the platforms. So from a global perspective, just if you would think about it, even now, geographically being dispersed, and we're able to engage in this show remotely
Yep.
by using digital platforms that now is available to us, and to be able to distribute that in a way where it could touch thousands. And so if you put that into context, that ought to give you more motivation, even more, to really figure out ways, as leaders, to maximize digital platforms and services to be more impactful and do the things that they do each and every day. So my final question would be, what advice would you give to a smart, driven person that's about to enter into his first leadership position? And, what advice would you give him, and what advice would you tell them to ignore?
Oh, so I'm always one of those guys that like to end on a good note. So let me start with the stuff. What to ignore. First of all, ignore those voices in your head that tell you that you're not capable of doing this. A lot of times, the biggest struggle that many of us have is the one that's inside of us. We tell ourselves that we can't do this, and we tell ourselves that we can't do that. It's amazing if you turn that can't to a can, what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be the first thing that I would tell them to do. I would also tell them, don't try to be like somebody else. Be you. Don't try to be something that you're not. It's hard. It's already hard enough being yourself. It's even harder trying to be something that you're not, or trying to be somebody else. So be you. If you're not a hollerer, or don't be a hollerer. I mean, as a leader, you can still be a person that is an introvert, but still have some extrovert qualities, because you have to. You got to talk to your people with them. But at the end of the day, if you're not one of those people that's out front and all this, don't try to do it, because you're gonna be exposed eventually. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what I would tell a first-time person in a leadership position is, be a listener, be humble, do not forget where you came from. Don't get caught up in the title, because the same title you had today can be gone tomorrow. Remember to be a servant leader, because a lot of times people think that when they get into a leadership position, now it's time people starting to work for them. No, matter of fact, that's when the work really comes for you. Because at the end of the day, as a leader, you are developing other leaders. You're developing future leaders. So, which means it requires some work on your part. And so, if you go into it with that, you remain humble. Don't allow pride to get in the way. When there's something that you don't know, you ask questions and be a good listener. Everything else will fall into place. Because, as you know, you get better with leadership or as you said, don't like to really use the word leadership, but you get better as you experience more things and be exposed to more things. And so, and I just tell them to enjoy the ride. Take care of your people, and your people will take care of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I always say is that as you enter into a particular leadership position, is that now is your the real opportunity is for you to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that we have arrived. I'm a leader, right? and it's not. It's not now. You're still your opportunity to continue to grow and to evolve. I know as a leader, no matter what level you find yourself on, because the next level is going to require a much different you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to be prepared for that. So before we go, how can people connect with you? Some of the things you're doing, either online or through social media.
All right, so hey Vince, look, I'm on Facebook. I go live every day, Monday through Friday, on Facebook. People can either send me a friend request on Facebook. I also have started touching on my podcast. I actually gonna go full force on my podcast at the first of the year, but I've already put some stuff out there. So I'm on all podcast platforms, to include Spotify, Apple Music. The name of my podcast is "Don't Talk About It, Be About It." That has been my mantra the majority of my career. So all you gotta do is type in "Don't Talk About It, Be About It," or look for Garrick Griffin on any one of your podcast platforms, and you can find me.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. So, hey, Garrett, thanks once again for joining us today. It has certainly been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing and hearing more from you. So please come back and check on us soon.
Most definitely.
Thanks, everyone, for staying with us today. We certainly hope that you enjoyed today's episode. So make sure you join our Facebook group, Out Front with Vince Noble. And don't forget to comment, rate, share, and subscribe to Apple Podcasts or wherever you download or listen to your podcast. Until next time, remember, you still get to write your own life story.